Graphing a linear inequality in the plane, standard form, example 1. So I need to graph this inequality. My inequality right now is in standard form, or in other words, the x and the y terms are together on one side of the inequality symbol, and the constant term is alone by itself on the other side of the inequality symbol. So the first thing that I need to do here is solve this inequality for y. Okay, so I'm going to write negative x minus 4y is greater than 4. Okay, and then I'm going to solve for y, or try to get this y isolated or by itself. So the first thing I need to do, since I have two terms over on this left side of my inequality symbol, I need to get rid of any term that isn't involved with the y. Okay, so this negative x, I'm going to zero out or eliminate by adding x, and then doing the same thing on the other side of the inequality. Okay, so these are going to eliminate, and I'm going to be left with negative 4y is greater than. Now these two are not like terms, 4 and x. One's a variable term, 4 is a constant term. So I just have to keep both of them, x plus 4 on the right side of my inequality. Now I'm going to divide by negative 4 everything, every term, right and left sides. And since I'm dividing by a negative here, I'm going to have to flip my inequality symbol. So this is going to leave me with y, flip my inequality symbol, is less than. I'm going to rewrite this term as negative 1/4 x, and this term, 4 divided by negative 4, is going to simplify to negative 1. So now I have my inequality rewritten in y, not y equals form, I guess, because we have an inequality, but I've isolated the y, or solved for y, in my inequality here. So now I need to graph, okay, my boundary line. My boundary line is the corresponding equation, okay, that would correspond to that inequality, which is y equals negative 1/4 x minus 1. So my y-intercept here is negative 1, so I'm going to put a dot at negative 1. My slope is negative 1 over 4, so down 1 over 4, down 1 over 4. I'm going to do that a few times. And then to give myself a few more dots out this direction, I'm going to reverse that both ways. So instead of going down 1 over 4, I'm going to go up 1, back 4. So up 1, back 4, up 1, back 4. And now that I have several dots, I'm ready to draw in my boundary line. I just need to decide, is my line going to be solid or dashed? Okay, so I go up here and look at my inequality symbol. Since this is a strictly less than, my line is going to be dashed. So line up my ruler here with my dots, and I'm going to go just kind of put some dashes in here. Okay, so there's my boundary line. Now I need to decide, am I going to shade on top of this line, or am I going to shade below this line? Okay, which half of my coordinate plane needs to be shaded? So I like to imagine this as the slope of a hill or a mountain. Okay, this is a negative slope going left to right. If you were hiking on this hill or this slope, kind of picture yourself standing here, you would be hiking downhill. Okay, it's a negative slope. Now, if you go up here to your inequality, the way we kind of read this, or you can say to yourself, I'm going to shade, right, where there's a y, say to yourself, I'm going to shade below the boundary line, because this is a less than, right? Shade less than the boundary line, or shade below the boundary line. So if you picture yourself on this hill, kind of walking down this hill or hiking down, Below you would be the mountain, above you would be the sky. So the mountain or below you would be this half of the coordinate plane, so that's the side I shade. And then once I fill in this shading, I am done. So if you start with an inequality that's in standard form, the first thing you need to do, rewrite it, solved for y, okay? Solve for y or isolate the y on one side of the inequality. Don't forget that if you multiply or divide by a negative, you need to flip your sign while you're in that process, okay? After you have it solved for y, you're going to graph the corresponding equation as your boundary line. But before you draw it in, make sure you decide if that line needs to be dashed or solid. And then once you have that boundary line drawn in, you're going to decide, do you shade above or below that line, right? And if your inequality is less than, remember, shade less than the line or shade below the line. You shade downward, okay, mountain. And if your inequality is greater than, shade above the line or shade greater than the line, then you would shade sky.